Welcome back to rcFoamFighters Bulletproof RC Plane Build Along number 1. In this video we're going to be finishing up the rest of the airframe and completing phase 1 of the build. Alright, this is what our wood plate is going to look like when it's almost done. Let's go ahead and go over the dimensions and how to fabricate it now. Alright, we're going to need the square, the box cutter, a pen, a tape measure, and a piece of this 1/16 of an inch thick by 4 inch wide by 24 inches long basswood. Basswood will be a lot stronger than using balsa. First thing we need to do is check the width that we need to cut the wood. We originally marked the slot for 8 inches, but you're going to want to double check just to make sure you didn't make it oversized or undersized. Okay, so now we need to cut out 2 strips to the width of whatever the measurement came out to be. So mine is 8 1/8, so I'm going to measure over 8 1/8 inches from the edge here to the edge of the square. Make sure the square is flat against the side of the wood. Go ahead and draw your line. And then hold the square down tight and just go ahead and cut the piece out with the box cutter. And you're going to need 2 pieces like that, so just go ahead and cut out the second piece. Alright, once you have your 2 pieces cut out, you're going to apply some CA glue to the edge, and then we're just going to butt them together and glue them together to make one piece. Alright, now that we have the plate glued together, it's time to put on the lines and the dimensions. You want to start again with the center line first, so take the square, square it off the bottom edge of the piece of wood, and you're going to want to split the width. Mine was 8 1/8, so half of that would be 4 1/16. So you want to measure over 4 1/16 of an inch and check it on both ends. Draw the line for the center line. For the outside edges, just square off the corners and come up 3 inches. Put your dot there. And do the same thing on the other side. Come up 3 inches, put your dot, and then connect the dots, and that will give you the outline of the piece that we're going to cut. I just drew a straight line across here because I want to save this piece for later. We're going to use that for other parts of the plate. After that, you're going to want to mark the notch for where the prop nut is going to fit. Basically what I did is you want to come up the center line 1/2 inch and come over 1/2 inch. Put a dot at 1/2 inch here and a dot at 1/2 inch there, and then draw your line. Do the same thing on the opposite side. Come over from the center line 1/2 inch, come up 1/2 inch, and draw your line. We're going to cut this notch out so that the prop nut will have a little more clearance. After that, you'll have the center line. You're going to want to come over 2 inches on both sides. From the center line, measure over 2 inches here and measure over 2 inches here. Draw a line. Same thing on the opposite side. And this is where we're going to put our diffusers. Now that we have the wood plate cut out, we're going to go ahead and cut the strips that we're going to use to make the diffusers. Take the leftover piece of wood, the larger piece, and we're going to cut 4 strips 3/4 of an inch thick. So just measure in from both ends 3/4 of an inch, and then use the box cutter to cut with the grain of wood, and just slice off 4 of these, and it should leave a 1 inch piece remaining, which will be the center one, which is a little bit taller. Alright, now that we have the strips cut out, we're going to take 2 of them and mark the lines for the smaller size diffusers that are going to go to the outside. What you want to do is measure the width of the wood and come half the distance in and mark your center line. From the center line, you're going to come over on one side 3/4 of an inch and put a little mark. On the opposite side, you're going to come over 3/4 of an inch and put another mark. then you just take the square, lay it across the dots again, and mark your line. From these two dots, we can just draw from that dot to the corner outside here, and from this dot to the corner outside there, and that will give us 2 of the diffusers out of each piece. Alright, now we're going to take the 1-inch strip and make the center diffuser. You're going to want to come from the end over 6 inches and draw a line with the square straight up and down. Then you're going to measure over from the top of that line 2 inches and put a dot. Then just connect the dots like we usually do. Draw your line from this side over to the dot and over to that corner. And this will be the center diffuser that's going to run down the middle. We're only going to make one of these because I'm only going to put it on the top side. I don't want anything hanging down too much off of the bottom because it might break off when we come in for landing. So we're just going to put 2 of the smaller ones on the bottom of the plate. Now that all the pieces are cut out, we're ready to glue them onto the plate. But first we need to put some lines on the bottom side. We're going to want to transfer the center line over the same way we did before. Square off the bottom of the plate and measure over half the distance and draw your center line. From the center line, we're going to come 1 inch over this way and 1 inch over this way. Again, use the square and draw your lines. This is going to be where the smaller diffusers are going to go on the bottom of the plate. Alright, before we can glue the finished piece onto the plane, we need to make a couple little support pieces that we're going to glue onto the foam first, and then we'll set the plate down on top of it and glue it on there. These 2 pieces came from the remaining 2 strips that we cut that were 3/4 of an inch wide. You're going to want to cut them to a length of 4 1/4 inches. So just cut them off at 4 1/4 inches long, and then you're going to need to cut a notch the thickness of the material in here, and that notch needs to come back 1 1/4 inches. So from this side we're going to come back 1 1/4 inches and then cut down 1/16 of an inch deep and cut it across so that you have a notch that the plate will fit into, just like that. Alright, the wood plate is ready to be glued in. Let me show you exactly what I did. I got the 2 support pieces glued to the sides of the foam, and the wood plate is just going to sit right on top of this edge, which is straight. The only thing you want to make sure is that it is flush with the bottom. That way you know that it's going to be square to the airframe, and you don't want to make sure that you don't have any angle in this plate, because it could act like an elevator. If you have it angled up in the back or down, it can cause the plane to either climb or nose down while you're flying. So we want to make sure that it's parallel to the wing. One other thing I did was I rounded these edges at the back. They were just square, so I cut back a little bit of the fiberglass on the top and beveled it a little bit with the handheld hot wire, and then sanded it with the sandpaper and covered it with the same strapping tape that we use on the leading and trailing edge to give it a more rounded contour. This should help get a little more air to the prop this way. Before we glue the wood plate on, we want to trial fit it and make sure that it lines up with the center line. So take the straight edge ruler and set it right down the center line, and it should line up with the center diffuser. You don't want to have them crooked one way or the other, or it might cause the plane to turn a little bit while it's flying. So we want to make sure that it's square that way with the center line. Alright, we're going to go ahead and glue it on now since it lines up right. Okay, this concludes phase 1 of the build. We have the airframe complete. We'll be starting phase 2 here real soon. Thanks for watching RC Foam Fighters. See you soon.